in those rooms as well. So that really is the question that brought us here over the past year. Like I mentioned, I just really became increasingly curious, as I'm sure a lot of you have, not just about the tools themselves, which we could all name one or two or three, but about what this moment really means for nursing as a profession. So I started just wondering how are we preparing the next generations of nurses for jobs? And how are we training nurses not only to use the technology, but also to see how they're being prepared to question it, right? To govern it possibly, to build it themselves, not just for somebody else to build it and then for us to adapt to it, but to evaluate it and to lead it. So that's what this conversation is going to get started with. I reached out to many leaders, and this was across LinkedIn, emails, and a lot of them here. So including, some of our very panelists tonight, because like I mentioned, I was curious, but I was trying to find the people already having those bigger conversations. And I think that you'll find, I'm just going to quickly read my message, and this was to each of them. So it was to Dr. Delaney LaRosa, Dr. Catherine Schaefer, and Dr. Stefan Ferrara. And of course, we all know Dr. Lendra James, one of our other co-founders of Nurses Shift Change. So I just mentioned to them, I value your work. I've already, invested in your product, whatever it is that person was doing. And I see that you're continuing to expand on AI, right? I'm already familiar with the organizations and I named them, but I'm looking for more advanced spaces focused specifically on the intersection of AI, healthcare innovation, corporate governance, and that product safety. Most interested in learning about groups, conferences, and coalitions or communities where nurses are actively engaging in conversations around AI, governance, that startup ecosystem that might be very new to a lot of us, digital health, and then leadership in that emerging healthcare industry. So I'm so happy that they each said yes to being here and to sharing their insight, their expertise, and just their journey. And so we really are here to listen and to hear about the power that's being created, that leadership, the governance, the education, the innovation, of course, and then our professional judgment, how we can improve it. So my hope is that today feels less like a webinar and really more like a conversation that you are all just eavesdropping on, I hope. And that it's a powerful conversation that needs to be had among leaders who are willing to ask those questions that right now we really can't afford just to avoid it or just to have them in silos or just to say that's for these individuals to discuss and that's it. So I want to just introduce them all, and I'm gonna keep their bios very short, but they're each, like I said, they're each powerhouses. Dr. Stephen A. Ferrara. Stephen has spent his career at the intersection of clinical practice, education, national policy, and workforce modernization. He served as Columbia University's founding associate dean for artificial intelligence, the first role of its kind in nursing education, and founded AI Nurse Academy to build AI literacy. And he's responsible for people that are taking that course, to include it in what they're doing and what they're practicing. He is also the immediate past president of the American Association of Nurse Practitioners and a national voice on health policy, practice authority, and the future of nursing leadership. Stephen, thank you so much for joining us. Next, we have Dr. Catherine Schaefer. Catherine brings more than 3 decades of nursing and higher education experience with a focus on human-centered innovation, trauma-informed pedagogy, design thinking, belonging, and transformational leadership. Her work reminds us that innovation is not only about what technology can do, but about how systems can honor dignity, equity, and the human experience. Catherine, welcome. We have also Dr. Delaney W. La Rosa. Delaney is a teaching professor of artificial intelligence in healthcare at Florida State University, where they founded a coordinated one of the first MSN tracks dedicated to AI in healthcare. And their work bridges emergency nursing, entrepreneurship, research administration, academic leadership, equity centered design, and ethical implementation. Delaney is also the lead editor of Nursing Education in the AI Era, helping educators integrate AI while preserving relational care and human judgment. Delaney, thank you so much for being here. And last but certainly not least is Dr. Lendra James. Lendra is a nurse executive, wellness strategist, and AI consultant whose work sits at that intersection of clinical operations, workforce well-being, governance, ethics, and emerging technology. She partners with healthcare organizations and academic institutions to implement responsible, bias-aware AI while reducing burnout, strengthening trust, and preparing leaders like all of us here for change. And Lendra, thank you so much for being part of this conversation and saying yes. So I want to start with the question underneath, all of this, I think just being underscored, not what can the technology do, but where should nursing lead? So that's going to be sort of round one, if you will, the moment that nursing is in right now. So the question for everyone, as you look across healthcare, education, policy, and innovation, where do you believe that nursing has the greatest opportunity to lead over the next decade? And then please share any kind of insight, what concerns you the most, and what you want to see from us moving forward. So I'm going to start with Dr. Ferreira.
Thank you so much, Gloria. It was great opening. Really captured the point that we're in right now with AI, particularly in nursing. And I do believe we're at an inflection point. I believe we have a tremendous opportunity to define what AI in nursing is going to be and going to look like. If we're not the ones making that call, then shame on us for not being at the table. So I think that's the tremendous opportunity. And that's the domain that we know best. I also think that a lot of times in various conversations I've had, across the industry, is that nurses are being left out of the other parts of the healthcare system when it comes to AI. Yes, while many times we are going to be end users of the products, we're not necessarily being thought of as co-developers. And I think that's a tremendous opportunity. And then the last thing I'll say is trust is ours to lose, right? This is going to move as fast as as fast as people will trust it. It's no coincidence, I'll cite it because I get to go first. But the Gallup poll comes out every year, every year since 2000. Nurses have been ranked the most ethical, the most trusted profession. Well, wow, what a great privilege to have that perception in the public, but we could easily give that away. And we can't let technology do that. So I know my colleagues have some, other words of wisdom to share, and I'll stop there.
Thank you. So trust is ours to lose. And I think that is going to remind us throughout, I think, this conversation. Dr. Schaefer, if you can maybe touch on that a little bit more too, the trust is ours to lose, and just how we should be involved in the product development. Dr. Schaefer.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Steve, for having me. First of all, it really is a pleasure and an honor to be here amongst some icons here on the screen with me. So I have to agree with Stephen a lot when he talks about that. Nursing is the largest workforce in healthcare, yet we are the smallest voice in the room when it comes to AI design. And I think the opportunity to miss is not adoption, it is really designing what we are using at the bedside. And when you talk about trust, AI tools touch patients, but they touch nurses' judgment first. And so if we don't understand how that all plays out in the end, that's the trust that we lose with our patients and in healthcare in general. It's nice to be called to the table when they're asking for feedback on a product that they've already signed a contract for. But if we always then develop workarounds and we find another way not to use it. And so we've lost all this financial, stability in the institution, and now we lose nurses. So understanding the whole ROI and why we're trying to adopt it, I think the trust has to be that nursing has to have a better language. We need to have a better skill at articulating that we understand that healthcare is a business, but we also need to be at the table when they are designing this type of business. And so I will leave it up to my other colleagues to answer some more, because I know there's a lot to talk about tonight, but I think that's how we lose trust the most, is when we don't have a say in the end product that actually touches our patients.
Yeah, and I just captured designing what we are using at the bedside, right? Being at those decision making, I guess, conversations, and maybe creating those ourselves. Dr. LaRosa, if you could share a little bit about the faculty preparation, maybe the ethical discernment, or to add to what we've already discussed.
Sure,
Dr. LaRosa.
thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation. I echo what my colleagues have said, but here's the way that I think about it. The ship has sailed. We know that. We're all talking about it. So in my world, and what I really fight and work to do is two-pronged. One, I want to take nurses who are practicing today and immediately give them a quick hold on what's happening with AI, where is it, and then give them a model to immediately evaluate it. Like, spend 90 minutes with me and you'll walk out the door and you'll be able to have a conversation next week with someone where you work about what's happening with AI and how is this impacting our patients and whose voices have been involved. And so that's it's already here. How do I begin interacting with it? And then the second pathway is that we have to educate nurses. And it doesn't matter if you don't want to get a degree, if you just want to get some baseline education so that you can understand where is it, what is it doing, how can I interact with it? And I really advocate people even using AI to do a grocery list, because you'll learn something about how AI works. If you're not using it at all, you really need to start using it. Get that baseline education, and then use that education to be part of the conversation and start getting opportunities to be in the room when those things are developed. The way I think about nursing in AI is we are advocates. We have always been advocates. I believe that responsible AI use is a base nursing competency. I think we're going to start seeing it in NCLEX exams. I think that is going to come. And if that is a basic competency, then we all have to, as nurses, start getting some understanding of what it's doing now and how we can be part of that conversation. And those with the interest, find all of us. We're all here. We're on LinkedIn. We're freely giving away our knowledge and trying to help nurses get a leg up and get educated.
Thank you. Yes, please find them. They're very easy to speak to, and they'll say yes to invitations. But yes, it's making sure that you're finding those individuals that are already doing the work and seeing how you could either amplify the messaging or assist with exactly what you just said, Dr. LaRosa, of designing the AI nurse competency, which that's really going to be exciting, and we can touch on that a little bit later as well. Dr. James, if you wanted to touch on maybe the designing, being the designer, what does that look like? Or anything else? What concerns you the most as we're stepping forward?
I can completely appreciate everything that has been said tonight. Nursing is still too often positioned as the workforce that adapts to innovation rather than the profession that helps design it. And what I heard was we're not asking the end user, right? Where we need to have nursing, need to have AI as a basic competency, all of which are true because we are the designers, right? We are the designers, and what happens is we design workarounds, and we're the ones who are advocating and educating for the patients, but we're also the last ones that come to the table, which it should be the other way around, and it's backwards. Nurses understand where the workflows fail, where the patients fall through the cracks, where documentation creates burden, where an algorithm may not reflect the real human situation that's right in front of us. So we're missing opportunities in procurement, right? We're missing opportunities in product development, implementation, governance. Governance is something where when we talk about design, that's where design starts. That's one of the places it really should start with, what does the policy look like? What does that governance looks like? What does that system look like? Who is accountable? Is this fair? Is this equitable? Does this workflow reflect the patient population or the demographics of this community? So these are all of the things that we need to be looking at when we talk about design. We should not only be giving the feedback on technology once something has rolled out. We should be the ones creating the criteria by which the technology is evaluated. And we're too often asked to adopt to that technology that we were, again, never asked to shape. And AI can automate our administrative work. It can support our clinical decision making. It can strengthen our patient education. It can assist with remote monitoring. All of these wonderful things that we should do, but we have to be at the table and we have to be a part of that governance. So I'll stop there because, like you said, I can continue on as well.
Yes, yes. Save some for part two. But yes, we definitely have to go back to that. What you mentioned, who is accountable? Why are we being asked to adapt after the system has been either improved, created, designed? We are the designers, and we should be the designers. Because we're already doing the workarounds. We already have the innovative solutions. But we're missing, I really like what you mentioned, we're missing the procurement there, right? And then the policies. So I think we're out of place in the trajectory of what's happening. So maybe for round two, we can look at preparing nurses for jobs that don't exist yet, or that maybe people are doing it at the first of their kind, right? Like Dr. Ferreira. What does that look like? And how can we bring others to that elevated, position? I'm gonna go a little off script. I wanna mention to Catherine first. I think you've spent decades already preparing nurses and designing learning experiences. Um, how do you teach adaptability rather than just really simply teaching with today's tools, right? What does it look like when we prepare nurses to create change or to be innovative and not just respond to it? What does that look like? If you can respond, Catherine, and then we'll go to Delaney next.
Sure. And I think it's got a couple pieces to it. It's not just one piece, but something that Delaney said previously, I want to just kind of expand upon when we talk about AI literacy. In my opinion, I think AI literacy is the floor. Like that's the basics that people should have. It really should be discernment. Is the end product that comes out of whatever tool you're using. And I think that's the first step. Students have to understand what is the tool they're using and why are they using it. Is it a large language model? Is it a predictor model? Is it, is an analytic model? They really have to understand what this is. And so once I have it, the information that it has given me, is it valid? Like, can I trust it? And I think that discernment piece is the hardest piece to start teaching even nurses, but students in particular, because they are, for me, I teach a lot of undergraduate students. They are just entering nursing and they don't even know how to manage a disease process, let alone I'm telling them now they have to fight with an AI tool to say, are you right or are you wrong? So for me, it is really starting to teach them to question. And you can set them up how to question, but how to question data. It's just like when we did evidence-based practice, or when we do it, we don't just take a study and say, oh, because somebody said that this was the result, let's apply it to the whole population. It's the same thing with the data that comes out of AI. What is it you're giving me, and how can I trust that this is what it is? Because in the end, if I sign my name to document that this is true in the ultimate when I'm practicing, I am still liable because I signed my name to whatever that tool gave me. And I think that's the biggest piece that we have to teach students. How do we start to question? Because data comes out fast, and we've all used ChatGPT, and it sounds pretty good. And we say, well, you must be the smartest thing in the world. So thank you very much. And then we just, pass it along. So for me, that is the skill that I'm trying to teach my students. How do you start to ask the 5 whys? How do you start to question? How do you really kind of interrogate what you're getting out or what you're using? And that should be the beginning part, not just how do I use this tool?
Yeah, thank you. And then how do we prepare those students to question the AI outputs? Like, do we give them a toolkit? Do we give them we have to give them a roadmap, right? Because it doesn't exist yet. And not just here it is, question it, use your discernment, right? But this is the way to do it. Just how we have a review of literature and there's a whole process. Maybe that should be something that we also look at. Stephen, from that national policy and professional organization perspective, do you see AI competencies eventually becoming part of accreditation, certification, licensure, or continuing education expectations? And I want to say, well done on the program that you've created. I've taken it, shameless plug, and this is me saying it, so it's not a it's not a conflict, but it was really well created. But what should nursing organizations do now so that they are not, playing that catch up that I think that we're all hearing about, that we're doing all this catch up right now? What should they be doing?
Yes, thank you for the question and thank you for the shameless plug. I did not, Venmo you any money or promise to, so thank you. Yes, I think our professional associations have a responsibility to set the stage for this. And I'm going to say, I'm going to be a little controversial. We're behind, collectively we're behind. And I get it. These are big organizations. Big organizations tend to move very slow. And this technology is moving very fast. And I hate to sound so cliche, but even if we were having this conversation 6 months ago, it would look a little different than how it does today because of the capability. So yes, I do believe we'll see competencies, and I think there's going to be a spectrum of competencies, right? There's going to be a baseline that everyone that's going to use a large language model type platform should have. And then I encourage folks to dig in deeper, right? And go into the coding section. That's not going to be every nurse, but there's definitely going to be a subset of nurses, and we collectively need everyone. And as Catherine was saying, um, I go back to the foundational concept of these models, right? And I'm going to use another cliche, right? Garbage in, garbage out. While these are not, repositories of information, they are trained on data. And if that data is already biased to begin with, the product and output that you're going to get is output that is biased and leans one way or another. So we have to recognize that, and the programmers of these chat bots that we use, they program them so that we use them and that we trust them, and they are confident, seemingly confident sounding in their responses. And that lets our guard down, right? Because it looks, that looks good, right? Yeah, that's a great response. Until you start pushing back on it. And it then all of a sudden says, oh, you're right. Thank you for catching that. Thank you for putting that out there. Well, why didn't you flag that before I had to raise it? So, there's a lot we need to learn. This is transformational technology that has been around for a long time, but not to the degree and not in the hundreds of millions of hands that it's in the hands of today. So with that, there has to be some competency, some understanding, and knowing that at the end of the day, my license, I pay my money to New York State Board of Nursing. And if I make a mistake, they're not going to go after my AI. My defense can't be AI told me to do it, right? Like what that we don't want that. That would be scary. And I think that's what we have to constantly keep in mind.
Thank you. Lendra, I'm going to go to you next. We know that healthcare organizations and definitely grassroots, movements like Nurses Shift Change, we're under pressure to adopt that new technology quickly, right? I know that you created an amazing app for us, but when you're looking at employers like hospital systems, how can employers, but also, grassroots movements, how can we partner with schools to prepare nurses, our members, our participants right now joining or pressing play to the recording? How can we prepare them for that environment where that we're entering, that we have that baseline, right? To mention what Dr. Schaefer said, that's the floor, but how can we partner with them, or what is it that you would like to see?
A lot of times, right now, what we have to understand is those who are leading AI right now, we are leading it. And what I mean is, and I think it's been said, and it is kind of cliche, if you're not using it, you're being left behind. And right now, those who are leading, we likely know more than the average person who uses ChatGPT, right? ChatGPT is our household name at this point, and Claude is starting to become that as well. And when you look further than that, when you start to developing solutions that can be used in educational institutions, solutions that can be used in healthcare organizations, you start to understand that there's a different side of how AI and the innovation and the technology can be used responsibly. So when you start to have those conversations, one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that you're going to be educating people on a different level, and you have to get them to understand the governance. And a lot of times you have to have frameworks. Frameworks are very, very helpful. Why do we use frameworks? We use frameworks so that we can develop and get a repeatable, right, outcome. And that's why we use frameworks. So when you have those conversations, it's like you said, when it comes to organizations, organizations do move very, very slow, but it's helping them to see the value on what's going to happen or what they're going to have as for the end users, which are ultimately the nurses, right? So let's just say nurses. The end user can be the nurse, the end user can be let's just say the healthcare professional. But we want them to be informed AI should be informed should inform clinical judgment, but it cannot become the substitute for it. And the danger is that AI recommendations, they can look very objective. And as we were just saying, if we just trust those outputs, we're going with something that's saying like, oh, okay, like that sounds good. But as the developers, we have to be able to teach in the institutions, the organizations that no, this is how you want to be able to apply and be able to have the outcome that you actually want. So basically what I'm saying is be prepared for slow for slow decisions, but also be prepared to educate. Be prepared to deal with a community that may be really, believe that, oh, I know AI because I use ChatGPT or I use Claude, so I know AI. But there's a lot of different levels to this. And I say this as a certified AI consultant, right? Being certified internationally, and we still continue to train. So I continue to train myself, and it's far beyond ChatGPT at this point, but that's not necessarily who you're dealing with or who you're talking to when you're going into the certain institutions, whether it's an educational institution or a healthcare organization. So again, going back to that basis of having that basic AI learning embedded into nursing programs or healthcare programs, absolutely, because these tools, as was mentioned earlier, they are touching our patients. And there has to be accountability on the other side at every different level, not just the vendor. There has to be accountability because, okay, this tool we adopted that came into our organization, we can't blame the vendor once we adopt it. We have to have a governance system and a framework that surrounds the process.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think also the big warning that maybe it just has to be repeated just so that we can feel the weight of it is that's not defensible to say, well, the AI told me to do this, or the AI said that was the correct dose, right? Or my assistant said that I should do this, because at the end of uh your shift, right, it's your name, it's your license, it's not ChatGPT, Claude's, whomever's, right? It's your license. Delaney, you're actually building one of the nation's first graduate programs dedicated to AI in healthcare. We are hearing AI literacy, right? I think we all kind of have an understanding, but what would that look like? And it sounds like we need a framework. But literacy, I think, can mean many things. So what does AI literacy actually mean for your nurses, for your program, if we can just start there?
Sure. We've actually had our first graduation cohort out of the program, so it's very exciting. For us, I think it's a lot of what Dr. James said. It's making sure that nurses know a variety of types of AI. So they have to understand, we have students doing things at Microsoft. We have students doing things at ed tech companies, at biotech companies, and in clinical environments. So they need exposure to all the different ways that AI is used. They need the basic tools and language so they can have a conversation, basic understanding of what's going on under the hood at a high level. And they also need a really good, deep steep in the ethics of AI and a great way to a path forward that's very clear for continuing education. I can tell you, I just said we had our first graduates. I completely dismantled the program and I'm doing it all again. And you have to have that kind of fortitude to be an educator in AI right now because it's moving so fast that what you built for that first cohort needs to look completely different. So literacy for me includes that desire for ongoing education, self-education. You didn't ask me this, but I want to make one comment because I think it's super relevant to education. And that is, I've always said that AI isn't a problem in higher ed because some people are thinking that and saying that. AI is revealing a 20-year-old challenge about the way that we teach,
Yeah.
right? Yes. Thank you, Anna or Dr. Banks. And so we have to be able to be teaching to that critical thinking and the protection of our judgment and trusting our judgment and all the things that we've been saying for so many years. And the cool part is that AI can be very good at helping us do that. So I do think that we're at that critical juncture where people are feeling a lot of pressure in education about it. They're worried about it, but I think we're going to break through that. We're going to address some problems that we've had. And I really am excited about the future of teaching, not just AI, but teaching itself with AI.
Wonderful. Well, congrats on the first graduating class. Um, I would be really interested to see like what's next for them, right? Where are they going to be practicing or leading or developing? So it's going to be exciting to watch their career path and just see their growth. Thank you for sharing that. And can you say that again? You said AI isn't a problem in academia, and then what was the second part?
So AI isn't the problem. The
Yes.
problem is that we have a 20-year-old teaching challenge that we've never
Mm,
addressed. And
okay.
that's really focusing on that critical thinking and that judgment and that confidence about it.
Mhm.
And now we have to solve it. We have no more choice. We've been forced into the moment when that's necessary.
Understood. Yeah, I wanted to make sure I captured that. Um, when we're looking at now round three, the governance, we've heard that, the policy, that accountability, and I think the professional judgment. Um, like Dr. Ferrer said, garbage in, garbage out, right? And we don't want to lose our licenses. So this connects right now directly to something that the ANA think tank is emphasizing, that literacy is no longer just that one-time training, right? Or a nice to have. It really is becoming part of our professional nursing competence across the career span, no matter where, if it's intro level, executive level. But that competence, and we heard Dr. James say it, that competence without governance, it creates a huge risk, right? And I don't think anybody's ready for that. So I do want to move us into that accountability, looking at that governance, the standards, professional judgment. What does that look like? So I'll start with you, Dr. Farah. For that ANA think tank, they emphasize what AI must support, not replace the professional nursing judgment, right? So what does that really mean in practice? And should we, and also every health system that we work in, should we have that nursing representation in the AI governance? And what could be like our step one? Yeah, just what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, and I want to take just a half a step back, um, and not necessarily look at this from a nursing lens, but look at it from a, citizen of the world lens, because it does touch all of us in all sectors. And somebody had mentioned in the chat, K through 12, like literacy needs to happen, AI literacy needs to happen in K through 12, and I truly believe that. I also believe that the policies that are being debated now, the laws that are being passed now, we must pay attention, and we must also weigh in on that. That's what we do, right? When legislation has been introduced, that's our ability to reach out to our elected representatives and tell them whether we support it or not. And we do not need to be AI domain experts, but we are experts in what we are experts in, right? So I think about, policy, I think about governance. So moving forward to nursing, I would urge nurses to join governance committees on AI. Again, you don't need to know the technology, but you need to know what you do know. And I think that has to ground us. It's less a technology problem, and more of a how do we implement this responsibly, ethically, so that we do not cause more harm to anyone, right? Like, fellow healthcare professionals and to patients. And let's not repeat the mistakes of the past. And one of the biggest mistakes that we still deal with today is the EHR, right? Like, just think about how many hundreds of millions, if not billions, of dollars have been poured into the electronic health record, and they're still not good, right? They're probably the bane of a lot of clinicians' existence. And I remember, meaningful use, right? Like this was a governmental program so that, we tried to come together on some policies on the right way to use all of this data that we have access to now. So, it's I want to offer permission for anyone out there to feel empowered to join your institution's governance committee, to ask the questions, become an AI champion, or just become a champion for how this is going to be deployed throughout, either your unit, your institution. And I think that's quite empowering. And I think it's the very least that we should be doing today, as this is increasingly prevalent all around us.
Thank you. Yeah, I was taking some notes. So less of a technology problem and more of how we can implement the technology ethically and responsibly so that we do no harm. And please, yes, become an AI champion. Um, that's the least that we could be doing, and I think we'll get into what else we should be doing. But Lendra, you work with organizations on responsible AI strategy, right? Many organizations, I think they want the implementation first and then possibly that governance to come somewhere after, right? So why do you think right now that it's backwards? And then we're hearing that we need to be sitting on those governance councils, but what happens when the workforce is impacted, and it's not at the implementation, level? What does that look like, and what are your insights there?
Yeah, a lot of times when I work with organizations, one of the first thing, and the panel can probably agree with this, one of the first things I hear is, well, we have a new CIO. So, and I'll give you an example. I was speaking with a organization recently, and one of their title was innovation. So I said, "Oh, are you leading the AI, or the AI charge at your organization?" And she goes, "No, we just hired a CIO." And I say that to say, as nurses, a lot of times we are, especially at executive levels, we have a responsibility to really start to lead this charge so that we can have that voice at the table and be able to govern these processes. It's not the IT's responsibility. Now, let me walk that back. When I say it's not their responsibility, it should be a cohesive effort, right? This should be definitely us working in parallel, because the end result is going to affect the end user, right? Going back to that. So oftentimes it's the IT department, it's the CIO, and a lot of times we don't necessarily understand that we should be having these conversations. And this is how we start to really be involved, right? Nurses, we have to maintain the authority, right? To question, to override, to document, to escalate. And if we don't have, if the bedside nurses, for example, are not given that push or that ability to advocate from the nurse leaders or the nurse executives, they don't understand that this adoption comes from, and then they're not going to sit or see why they need to be, or understand why they need to be at those governance tables. Because when you say governance, oftentimes, I don't think anyone wakes up saying like, oh, we need governance, right? No one says that. You have to bring the value and say the term that they actually understand, right? We are adopting a new tool and we need a champion, and helping the end user to understand why we need that champion. And then lastly, I'll say, and this is where frameworks come into play. And the reason why I talk about frameworks is because that's exactly what I use when I go into the organizations. And just going back to what I mentioned before, looking at the systems, who's accountable, is it fair, is it ethical, right? Where's the quality in what we're using? So in keeping that human in the loop, it is, and you've probably all have heard that as well. That is such an important part. So the human in the loop mean the nurse is placed at the end of the liability chain, right? After everyone else has made the decisions. And it kind of, again, should be backwards. It should be, we should flip that so that the nurse is first, or involved, at least involved at the beginning.
Mm. Yeah, I like that. I wrote that down. So keeping the human in the loop. Um, I know that she couldn't be with us, Rebecca Love, but I did want to just share a recap of something that she shared on LinkedIn. That approximately, and this was another article, it was Fortune. So approximately 16,000 jobs per month are being eliminated due to AI related workforce reductions. And that's since January. So roughly 455,000 corporate and tech jobs have been cut as organizations are restructuring, downsizing, and adopting AI. And I think we've all seen, her LinkedIn posts. She argues that AI's economic benefits should not come at the expense of widespread job displacement. And then, really questions who truly benefits if AI primarily it has an advantage on a small minority, right? While negatively affecting the majority. And then the growing issue of AI accountability. So I just wanted to make sure that we heard that perspective as well. And Delaney, I'm going to bring it to you now with the think tank that the ANA think tank, AI think tank. They raise some concern about that automation, right? Bias, and then the cognitive offloading. So if we're graduating nurses who know how to use AI, but are not questioning it, then have we really prepared them? I know that you're the first, right, to do this, but we can't just keep you as a last, right? Like, how are others gonna adopt the same? And how do educators teach that skepticism without fear, but also how are we going to empower ourselves to be competent and confident with AI?
I think I love that question because all you really need to do is go to the doctor's office when they're using AI when you're being seen, and then read the notes from your visit, because you can see how absolutely imperfect it is. So I think that we need to increase the amount of exposure in different ways that students have to these things. And we need to show them broadly what it's doing. That's one of the things I love to do, is say, let me show you where the failures are, but let me also show you where we're saving lives. And then the really mind-blowing thing is, let me show you where everything was right about the whole thing. We included the community, the nurses were at the table, we picked a great model, we talked about ethics, we put it into place. And the next thing it's doing is making decisions that marginalize patients that we never saw coming, and it's not the model's fault. So showing all those results to students in those different lenses, different viewpoints with different types of applications across healthcare, we have to keep reinforcing that. And it has to be the goods and the failures, so that there's that perspective of it's not all bad. It truly is saving lives. It truly has places where it's making an incredible difference. Rural health is a great example. And I think that those exposures are so important. So it starts little with giving them little tastes of working with a chatbot and seeing that the results maybe aren't all they expected it to be, and then just keep expanding that out and out and out. And it goes right back to, I hate to say it, a broken record of we have to teach that reliance on judgment and that confidence in the judgment, and teach them that, that's really what's on the line more now more than ever.
Thank you. Catherine, when we're looking at your work, it centers on eliminating burnout, right? The humanity, belonging, the trauma-informed approaches. How do we ensure that the innovation, though, really is strengthening the person, right? That human connection, rather than weakening it, rather than us being replaced, so to speak.
So I think we have to go back to the actual beginning, the foundation fundamentals when we come into nursing, and develop in students and in the places that we teach them psychological safety, so students can feel comfortable asking questions, understanding how we think as nurses and what is our train of thought when we go there, right? And once you build that environment where students actually show up as their authentic self in your classroom, then I think we get to start moving into, okay, now you have the ability to question. You're going to continue questioning everything that comes down the line. And so if there is a tool, just like Delaney said, that actually is going to save me some time, that it got it right this time, and I do get back 20 minutes of my shift, you get to use that 20 minutes however way you want. Maybe it is to like leave the unit and go and have a lunch, right? But maybe it's 20 minutes to go back and reinforce patient teaching about a new med they're taking. Or maybe that patient just got a really bad diagnosis and you had to run out the door, but now you can come back 20 minutes and spend 20 minutes with them to really kind of, right? That's the connection. And I think when we can foster environments where nurses can truly begin to maybe take some of that pressure off of moral injury, moral distress. Like, I knew I should have done more patient teaching, but I couldn't because I had to see the next patient down the line. But now maybe I can give that 20 minutes back so I actually can. Maybe we are going to start to see a shift where nurses are actually going to really feel those why they went into nursing, and their why stays with them longer and longer and longer, and not be washed away the minute they enter the floor right after they graduated from me in nursing school. So I think that's a lot that we need to do with students, and just like Delaney said, embrace the good and the bad, but give them the foundation that this is a safe space to ask questions. I think it's asked the question we all said when you're talking about governance. You should be empowered to ask the question, where's the governance policy for this tool that I'm using? Who wrote it? Where is my responsibility end? And where does the AI tool take this over? And if institutions don't have one, that's a sign. And if institutions don't want to show you it, that's a sign. So I think we should empower students to feel comfortable questioning what kind of a work environment they're going into. And that just is part of it, I think.
Yeah, thank you. And
And if I can
sure,
add to
yes,
that,
yes.
if I can add to that, and I love how you say we have to start teaching the students, because we do, and because we don't want them coming out of programs and then they have, let's say and I love to use the example of the sepsis alert system, right? Because we want them, because we're training them to think critically. And if we're just relying on a system or a sepsis alert to say that, hey, this patient is in sepsis. Well, we're looking at this patient and we know and we understand that they're not, right? However, and these are examples when the system can be wrong. So embedding these type of scenarios or examples or educational understandings of, helping them to think critically, understanding how the tool can be helpful, but it doesn't replace that human in the loop. It doesn't replace your human judgment. So AI may replace or change certain tasks, it should not replace nursing judgment. It should not replace advocacy, accountability, the human connection, right? The ability to recognize when the clinical picture does not match the data. And my greater concern is not that AI will replace every nurse. It is that nurses who understand AI may have a greater influence than nurses who refuse to engage with it. And it's the same thing outside of nursing as well.
Yeah, thank you. And right now, I did want to ask, just because we're on sort of the academia part as well, we often see in handbooks like a no AI policy, right? Um, and I understand it from the perspective of garbage in, garbage out, right? But what should they be doing? What should in academia, what should we be looking at? And I'm gonna pose this to Dr. Ferreira, please.
Yeah, it's a great question, and we could spend a lot of time on this one. But
Go for part two. Give us a snippet.
I'll give you the Cliff Notes version, dating myself. So what I think faculty are not doing are having faculty-wide discussions about how we're going to use AI within our program and what that's going to look like. Instead, what we're having is this one faculty member saying, no AI, this other faculty member saying, I don't care what you do, just get it right. And it's creating a lot of confusion, especially for the students. There needs to be faculty-wide policies, and it needs to be integrated thoughtfully throughout the curriculum. And it's a shame to me if there is a no AI use policy, because we are selling ourselves short and we are not giving students the ability to co-work with this technology. So look, should it write a paper? No, right? Like that's not a good use of AI because it can write one. Probably not very deep, probably not very good, but it'll write a 10-page paper and it's getting better at that. So, I think what faculties need to do is set the guardrails as we could use AI for, and whether it be idea generation, whether it be a final, check on a draft, um, using test questions, creating test questions in a test bank. I mean, how amazing potentially is it that we can give every student their own personalized tutor? That's what AI can do, right? And we should be taking advantage of that. If I have a tool available to me that knows where my weaknesses are and can prompt me to focus on content that helps me build up those areas, I think that's a fantastic thing. But it needs to happen faculty-wide, school-wide, university-wide. It's not just a nursing issue. It really isn't. And Delaney, I'm sure, can even go deeper on that. But I think we need to be thoughtful, and you don't need AI for every assignment. Maybe choose, one assignment of the semester where it's going to be an AI focused assignment. But to say don't use it, we're fooling ourselves, number one, because students are using it, and we're not using it quote unquote correctly. The way that it can be a collaborator with us rather than taking our place.
Yeah, thank you. And I think going back to what Lendra said too, of making sure that yes, we keep the human in the loop and that we're we're trying to also learn from it, right? Like so that we can have that discernment, the professional judgment. But how can we do that? And if we're not doing that because there's a no AI policy, then we're being left behind, meaning institutions, meaning those students. And the ones that are adopting it, and Delaney, you can speak to this, they're going to be the ones moving ahead, right? We'll go to Delaney first and then Catherine. Go ahead, Delaney.
So this topic is one of my favorite topics to discuss. Like, first of all, let me talk to your administrators and your CTOs, and let me explain to them that everything that's in every course, that everything we have, it's already out there. If I can screen scrape it, if I can copy paste it, it's in every AI right now. There's no such thing as like intellectual property. So the horse has left the barn on that. And the second part of that is that you can't, there is no, I was part of a beta tester for the very first AI sniffer for student use in the US, right? And even the people who've created them, Anthropic and OpenAI have said these things don't work. They don't work. We don't know when students are using AI. And my feeling is that we are throttling people. We're making it so that they have to be sneaky about it or whatever. And what I really love is to sit down with faculty and help them understand how they can use AI for every piece and every type of assignment. It does not matter if it's a writing assignment. There's a way to do it where you are thoughtfully, carefully with the guardrails that Dr. Ferrara spoke about, working with the student with AI because they are going to use it anyway. So you might as well help them use it responsibly. We can't be standing here going, oh, we need responsible AI, but don't you use it. we can't do that. We have to learn how to work with our students to use responsible AI. And it's hard because a lot of teachers have been doing this for a really long time. We all know what the median age of faculty is. I'm standing here with gray hair, so I can tell you that it's a lot to ask. But if we band together and we lean on the people who have the skills and the capabilities, and we mindfully try things with the student voice in there and with the faculty voice, we're going to get there.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope sooner rather than you know, after. But yeah, I love what you said. That somebody wrote it. The horse has left the barn. Yeah, we can't just assume that no, we said no AI, that means you're not using it, right? Like they are using it. Catherine, go ahead.
So I just wanted to follow up on what Stephen plug here. I will say at my institution, I belong to a very large academic practice partnership. And so thoughtfully created a AI integration and governance initiative where we had lots of faculty in on this. We have kind of leveled what assignments can, like what and what cannot. You know, obviously you can't in a clinical course dump patient data in there, and we use the governance from the institution of how to do this. And so it's a really big, large playbook. It covers faculty, it covers students, it even covers our staff. So we did a lot of that work. And if there's anybody who's listening to this and doesn't even know, if your institution does not have a policy and you don't know where to start, Delaney made this amazing chat bot that she used at her AACN webinar series that I attended, that I actually used to help validate part of ours, that you can say, I want competencies, I want the ANA like position statement, I want this in it, I want this in it. And it will walk you through how to create the conversation to have with your staff, with your faculty. Here, I'm going to bring this to you guys. Let's talk about what this looks like. What should we take out of here? What should we add to it? So there are people, like when we say there are O's of us out here who are willing to help people who just want to learn and do things. Delaney is definitely one of those people who is willing to help and explain things to people, but we don't have to sit in the dark anymore. There are lots of us out there who are starting to turn the light on a little bit. And so I think the more lights that we turn on, I think the more we're going to see ourselves at those tables. And like I always say, if we have to, why don't we just build our own table? Why are we waiting for someone to invite us? Build our own table.
Yes, yes, I love that. Yeah, and I think we have, right? That's why we're all here. We're part
Mhm.
of There's a Shift Change. And this is its own table. But I love that there are tools that are already created. There's this amazing app, and I'd love to see it, Delaney, if you could please share it. And yeah, we're going to be able to help each other, and we could get there faster together rather than trying to do it individually. So I do see the time, 8:37, and I want to go to round four. And just to make things a little bit more concrete, to shift the frame, where should we as nurses own the future? So where should we be looking at being founders, being those designers, being those board members, the advisors, the deans, the decision makers. So that's what round four will be about, innovation, product development, and of course our influence, because it's great right now. And Lendra, I want to start with you right here. When organizations evaluate the new technology, how do we then ensure that workflow, the burden, keeping the human in the loop, and then how do we start the conversation of before, I guess, the contract is signed, right? Like, because you mentioned the backward design, like where do we start with that?
We start from at the time of initiation of contact, right? So we start asking those questions. So like for in my work, we do I created an assessment, right? It's just like we would do an intake. We create an assessment and we really take that assessment and we break it down, and that's where we start, and that's where we start to see where the governance is and where it is not, right? Because if you can't answer yes to certain questions, that's already a problem. So that's where it starts for in my work. When we look at and just adapting that to healthcare, and that can be adapted in educational institutions as well. When we look at a lot of what we do is we look at solutions, so solutions to a problem, like the Shift app, right? So that was a solution to a problem. When we talk about the future of nursing, the future of nursing will not be protected by avoiding AI. It will be protected by the nurses understanding it, questioning it, and governing it and helping to build it, right? Building those solutions, and a lot of the levels that you already mentioned. You know, we have to move from being the end user to decision makers, from implementation, afterthoughts to governance leaders, from giving away our expertise to recognizing its value. And nurses are closest to the patients, they're closest to workflows, they're closest to consequences when systems fail. And that means our voices are not optional. And when nurses stay silent, healthcare builds the future without us. So it's important that we do band together and that we because we have the solutions. And I love what was just said. We can create it. And sometimes that means we have to create our own tables. So I love that comment because we do. So this is our opportunity to really choose influence, to choose leadership, and to choose ownership as well.
Yeah, and seeing that a lot of different ideas and apps maybe have already been created without us, and now they're adding a person for that person to look at the errors maybe and correct them. Or I've seen, and I don't know if others have as well, very unique job postings that are like it's like a per diem rate of like, can we just see if you can interact with this and give us some feedback? And then it's like a 1 month position, 2 month position. But that's because they didn't have a nurse at the beginning, right? Like, and so I wanna go to that too of how are we getting our student nurses prepared for those jobs that are existing right now already, like those per diem jobs, maybe not those specifically, but so that they can see themselves, these new graduates as designers of systems, not just the users of the systems or correcting the system by, I don't even know what they're called. It's like slipping my mind, but I don't know if others have seen it. So please, if it's your turn, let me know. Catherine, we'll go to you first.
So, I've always been a systems thinker. I have always taught my students I teach pre-nursing students all the way to the seniors when they transition into practice. And from the very first day when I get pre-nursing students, I tell them, you need to stop looking downstream. You need to start looking upstream, because every upstream decision has an immediate downstream impact, and you are the one at the bedside with that patient. And so I try to reinforce in my students, become a systems thinker. And I think this is exactly the key that Delaney was talking about, where we are stuck in the 20 years ago way of thinking, that we're task and skill performers at the bedside. That is not what we are, and that's not what we should teach our students to be. We need to start teaching them that there's a bigger vocabulary that they need to start to absorbing beyond medical terminology. They need to learn business acumen, because that will get them to be in the right position. Even if you're in your governance committee on your unit, on your floor, that's more than just your floor. You follow upstream. Who's making the decisions to make that kind of impact all the way down on your unit? And so I think that's, for me, as in my role as the director of innovation in the College of Nursing, that's where my shift has really started to really seep out beyond just my class, but across the whole program. All of our programs in the College of Nursing is, this is how our students have got to start thinking right from the get-go.
Delaney, I'll go to you next about just what questions then should educators teach students to ask when they're evaluating a new tool, but then to take that a step further too, of these postings that they're trying for us to teach, like the AI model, I guess, right? Or this AI system that they just created. How do we teach those organizations, businesses, like, you should have had us earlier, rather than now trying to tap into our expertise? What do we do with that? Where do we go from here?
I think that we have to start by having them look at outcomes. That's what I really like to get students looking at. So working with a health system, or where they work, or doing a project where they're actually looking at the data that came out, what was flagged, what was done with it, how is the patient impacted, so that they can begin to actually see the end term effects of AI. As I said before, it's not always just asking about the ethics of a model. It's asking about how this really impacted people, and who is at the table. Are there people who are, if we didn't get them when we were designing it, are we having people at the table to look at the results of it, including people who represent our community, people who represent our patients, things like that. I'll give you an interesting thing, and I really wish these companies would allow students who are in AI programs to be part of the testing. I do this a lot. I do it because I'm really curious what's coming out into the market. So I will say yes to being tester person for whatever company contacts me. And I find that even some of the companies who are developing this stuff that our nursing students will be using, when I test it, I look at the answers and I say, this is not current science for this. This is old information that's coming out of it. It's not correct. And so if someone like me can sit down and look at something that we're building with AI for our nursing students and see that the outputs are sometimes misaligned, we need to get more people. It doesn't matter whether they've already been at the bedside. They can go look to see if those answers are correct and represent current science. So I think we need to really look at evaluation as a really good way in and a way to ask questions. And I'll say one more thing, because I think I'm best buddies with some new people that I met here tonight. And Dr. James, you're one of them. The best tool that you can give someone to get started is a framework. That is the best tool, right? Because they're empowered right away. They just have to look down, and if it's simplified for them, there's questions there, and they can start asking those questions.
Thank you. I was taking notes. So it's an AI tester then, right? Maybe that's the term that they're using. Dr. Ferreira, how do professional organizations then, and you were the leader, probably still are without the title, they're tapping your shoulder, I'm sure. How do they help nurses then entering these, product, the policies, these businesses, governance spaces much earlier? What can we do right now? These 20 people that were on the call earlier, but also the ones that are going to press play, like what can we be doing earlier or even right now?
Yeah, I would say, from an organization, membership organization perspective is inquire if there's a AI task force, an AI specialty interest group, or anything of that sort. Informatics has existed for a long time, and that's its own specialty. I think AI fits within that, but there are some informaticists who are so scientifically based, and that's fantastic. But they're researchers, they're neuroscientists at heart. So I would say seek out or question to see if there are opportunities, because the great thing is that the companies who want to succeed and succeed probably because they want to make money. And that's not a bad thing, right? But they're going to be the ones who want to go to the large organizations and say, hey, we have a product here. We really want to get it in front of, your membership. How can we best do that? And I think that's, there needs to be a pipeline of those individuals to do that. And I think that's where organizations can really, really serve, a unique purpose. I think part of the problem, I've been to a lot of conferences that were not nursing. These are health tech conferences. And as I'd walk around in the exhibit hall, there's lots of vendors there, and I just shake my head at some of the solutions that they have come up with, because it's very clear to me that nursing was not part of or consulted in the process. So, and I think part of that is on us because we haven't made it easy for us to be found, right? And Gloria, like you said, you're out there on LinkedIn, you're searching for, nurses in AI, and I would probably say not a ton come up. So what I would love to see is not necessarily a new organization, but a repository, a list of AI literate nurses and fluent nurses that could really partner with the organizations who value the input and realize that they need essential component that they may be missing currently.
Yeah. Yeah, can we do that? I don't see why not, right? Yeah, I think we can. I
Why
think
not?
we
I
need
mean,
to. Yes, yes. I think we need to. When we're looking at we've talked on academia, we've talked on businesses and product development, right? What is another room that each of you can think of, looking at the time here, that we need to be in over the next 5 years? And that's either the boardroom, legislator, startups, right? Venture capital, standards committee. or anywhere else, like what is an example of where there wasn't one and now there is, or what can you share as far as just your insight on where we should be in the next 5 years? And I understand that maybe those rooms haven't even been created yet, but just, wildest dreams right now, where should we be at, where we're not, or where we newly then just entered? Lendra, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I think you listed a lot of them. Like as you were listing them off, I was saying, yep, there. And in the chat, I saw K through 12 was mentioned. We definitely need to start implementing AI into the school system, right? And it goes back to what we were talking about keeping AI out of the schools and not wanting the students to use them. Well, you know what? If it's just like having a child, right? You tell them not to touch the cookie, they're going to touch the cookie anyway, right? So, and it's the same thing with AI. We have to really create boundaries on how to use it. And if we teach them how to use it and how to use it ethically and responsibly, then you know what, we can start to alleviate a lot of the concerns of cheating. And I was just having this conversation with one of my advisory board members is a teacher and she's in education. So there's always that concern. However, we're just having those boundaries. But back to your question, I think you answered a lot of them, at least from what I can think of. Politically, legislatively, there needs to, it was mentioned of task force. There needs to be communities, even us with nurses shift change, right? And this is more conversation that we can even have when we talk more about our memberships. But definitely having more in academia, like I said, in the school system, and even in in academia, in the higher level education. So I love that there you have a curriculum, Delaney, on with AI. What I find a lot, and I don't know about what I find when we talk about there was mention of business and entrepreneurship in nursing. I've had those conversations, and I do find that we need to be more open-minded about that ourselves in the curriculum, because we need to be able to blend the nursing and the business, because that's where I stand, right? I'm at that intersection of nursing, business, and AI. So, and because I stand there, I can see that in academia, and it's not always well received. So being able to have that well received so that we can implement those curriculums in more institutions. So that's where I'll stop there.
Thank you. Delaney, did you want to go next?
Thank you. Yeah, one thing I want to say just briefly about the list of people who are interested, we are about to have some guidance on certification on AI in the marketplace. I won't say a lot about that, but it's coming, and that's a great place to begin to have a way to know who are the nurses who have some aptitude and at what level. I want to say that one thing we haven't really mentioned, and you sparked my interest when you were talking about where should we be. Nurses are really starting to voice their concerns about AI in clinical settings, and we've had a couple of unions actually renegotiate their nursing contracts at hospitals with specific AI clauses in them in New York City and Philadelphia. So they're doing that, and I'd love to say we need nurses on Capitol Hill. I think a lot of nurses aren't really sure how a law becomes a policy, how that policy is operationalized. And the United States is currently the most permissive AI policy, entity in the globe. And so we need people who can get involved. And I know for myself, I just learned that the ANA has like a $37 course on how to get involved and all that. So if you have absolutely no idea how to do that, there's no opportunity where you work to get involved. Consider doing that, because it is a great need, and that's where a lot of the force and the pressure and the pace is coming from. So that's a great place to get involved.
Thank you. I'll make sure that we all share those links after. Catherine?
So I'm just gonna say, I think nurses need to be everywhere. I think we need to stop thinking that we are contained in this little box because somebody told us to stay in a box. But I've said this years ago at a conference, there is no box. We were just told to stay in one. So you can imagine or believe that you can be anywhere, you should, because your nursing knowledge is just the foundation and it will just expand when you look into other areas. So I tell my students, if you can dream it, you can do it. You can take that nursing knowledge and go anywhere with it. And I say that we should be in every room who will open the door. And if it's not open, push the door open and say, I'd like to come in, I'd like to sit here because I'd like to see what's going on in this environment. Maybe you could use some of my, knowledge. Maybe I can help you. Maybe you can help me. I think it's all about just opportunities and community and relationship building. That will get us in doors that were never open for us before.
Yeah, and I think having some sort of that roadmap too, like a toolkit, something so that those that are interested and are not knowing where to start, right? Like me 2 months ago of like I'm very curious, like what do I do next? Like who do I contact? How do I get more knowledge? There's books out now, like that's why everything is moving so fast, but just like a start here. Start here and these courses are available. This is how you can partner with a venture capitalist. This is how you can partner with a health tech startup, like just to have those sort of toolkits, permission to do that, right? Because you're right, we have heard time and time again of like this is your lane. And like, well, the lanes are blurred now. Like there are no more lanes, right? Like I could go wherever, anybody could go wherever. So yeah, I think that we need to hear that though, and we need to give students that permission to dream big because if they're not hearing it from their instructors and if they're not hearing it from their institutions and if all they are hearing is AI is bad and if you do it, you're going to get kicked out of our program, then we're doing the huge disservice to them. But
Can I just add
yes.
one more thing? I would say to anyone who has the ability to have a forum with nursing students, invite the nurses who are not at the bedsides to those panels. Invite the nurse who might be doing venture capital. Invite the nurse who might be doing policy work. Invite the nurse who might be thinking how to do a startup and create their own app on their own. Invite them so students can see that there is more to what there is possible because all they see is what we show them on TV, that nurses work in hospitals. And
Yes.
we are more than that. I mean, look, there's 6 of us here on this screen, 5 of us on the screen. We don't all work. I mean, we have 5 different jobs, right? We all have one foundation, but we've gone in 5 different paths of what that looked like. So I think that that's the most important thing is to show students that they're, and listen, again, when we say that there's a whole bunch of us who'll be willing to come to talk to your class, now we have Zoom, we'll do it on Zoom. I mean, reach out to people. I got a couple people to do that on LinkedIn. I invited them to come to talk to my class, and I met them through LinkedIn. I mean, nurses are nice people. We'll do things for you, right? So for
Yes,
sure.
No,
that's
I couldn't agree more. And that actually gives me an idea for maybe our next session is talking about entrepreneurship, right? Or just business and AI. So that to your point, and that's right up my alley. So to your point, talking about thinking outside of the traditional setting, that's because that's where we're going, right? When we look at telehealth, when we look at
Yeah.
innovation, right? There's so many solutions that we can create, and we need to understand the business side because even for me, stepping out of that traditional setting and going to the business side, there was a lot that I needed to learn, which is why I started a lot of my programs, right? So that I could teach nurses how to do certain things. But to your point, maybe that's something that we need to talk. Maybe that's our next AI shift conversation
yeah.
because
True.
nursing is shifting. It is shifting. So
Yeah, I love that like business, nurse business and AI. And really we can't be what we can't see, right? And if we're not seeing it, if we're only seeing the same old, well, that's what you're gonna get. The same thing. I mean, maybe not the best use of the phrase, but garbage in, garbage out, right? Like we can't just keep repeating that same model, because the world has changed. Dr. Ferrara.
Yeah, it's all been said. And I just echo all the comments. The other thing I would just add is, nurses, don't give away your intellectual property. You have ideas, you have solutions. Um, you know, you may be able to turn that into a business, or some other venture. So I would just say, we want to be helpful and we want to help our patients, right? That's why we got into this profession. But don't give away all don't give it away for free is basically what I want to say. And yeah, there's valuable insights. The nurses are innovators by naturally, right? If your patient doesn't have something, you're going to find a way to get your patient whatever it is they need. And it's done constantly during your 12-hour shift, or in all across all other care settings. So yeah, get involved. If you're not sure how to get involved, use AI to, have a conversation with AI. And that's the other thing I want to encourage is I won't recommend one platform over the other. I would say use them all. See what works best for you. Put the same prompt in a few different of the free resources that are out there. See what, responses are better, for your case, and use it as a ideation partner. Kick ideas off of back and forth off of it. It's really good at that. So by all means, and as the models get better and more sophisticated and more autonomous, and we're seeing the use of agents now, where agents can perform tasks without coming back to us and prompting it every time. Utilize these tools. I want to see people creating. I want to see, and I think that's what the future is going to be. I think. We're going to find solutions in being able to vibe code a program or an app that works for you. You may have no intention of selling it, and that's fine. But if it makes your life easier, if it makes your patients get better care, well then again, I think that's my why. That's why I am so excited and enthusiastic about the potential and the future. Because if we use it for good, I do think good things will happen. We could also go down the other side of that equation and use it for bad, and it will be disastrously bad for everyone. So I try not to think of that so much, but again, empowering us to use it, empowering us to be in the room and have those conversations and to build.
Mm.
Thank you. Any other final thoughts or questions? I didn't see any in the chat, but I want to be respectful if you have a question and want to come off mute.
I'd like to make one last comment about
Yes,
that
please.
topic. You know, I am an owner of a healthcare company, and the same skills that I have for teaching people to use AI in healthcare are the same skills that I use to use AI in the business that I own. And so I just want to amplify what's being said here, and make sure that I say it so as many nurses can hear it. It's the same basic skill set. And so if you have that skill set, you truly can use it across industries. It's very powerful. So do think out of the box.
Yes, but we will have a part two, and I hope that you each can come back to join us so we can dive a little bit deeper on the business part of it, and just on that perspective, because we need to hear that too, on like your origin story and how that came to be. But I think with ANA think tank, with the frameworks that are pending, with like a template of these AI policies that different institutions can use, we're really at a pivotal professional moment right now. It feels exciting, but I know that for some it might be something that that should be feared. And I think that what we heard tonight, hopefully it's giving you hope that you do belong, and that there is a space for you, and that you can continue to learn and to be I forgot who mentioned it, but AI literate and AI fluent, so that you could be on that list. Because even your positions 10 years ago didn't exist, right? So I can't imagine, but I'm starting to, of what that could look like in 10 years, from now. And I hope that it's no longer that we're asking for, like, can we do it? It's like, what else can be done? What else needs to be done? And where else can we be? Because I think that we are the solution. And really, thank you everyone for being here. And right before the holiday weekend, I appreciate you all. And for those that stuck around, thank you. Stay tuned for part two. I did take a photo, but I'll take another one now. If anybody wants to come off or come on camera, so that we could take a group photo. There's 13 of you. Don't be shy. Unless you're getting ready for bed, then it's okay too. It's 9:07 here in Illinois. Okay. I think it's just gonna be us, right? Do you see more, Lendra? I don't think so. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, smile. One more. Eyes open, I'm telling myself. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend. Thank you. I'll be in touch soon. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.
Thank you. Appreciate you all. Thank you.